Good evening, everybody. It is Pseudo, and you are joining me on Wednesday, and it is Top Draw, our online TCG card game, collectible strategy card game. That's a lot of card games. Show that we have on Wednesdays. I will be, of course, summoning back in time to a little earlier today when I had a chance to speak with Marsh as we dug deeper and answered the previous question from the previous week about mulligans. And we're also looking even further into things such as synergy and tempo and other things. We want to make certain that we have a really solid foundation of understanding for terminology and TCGs so that when the time comes for us to start pulling out the spreadsheets, you guys won't be sitting there going, what are they talking about? So, for example, are you familiar with what a vanilla bear is? You'll find out in today's episode. Before I go into that, first, I want to take my hat off to every single one of you awesome people who has shown up in advance, who was here for a bit of our pre-show. And I also want to give a congratulations to, Mikkel and to Derderak, who both, by being here early, got themselves beta keys to Wildstar. They were winners in a little contest we had. I will state that at some point during the summoning of the Dr. Marshmellows, I will be having another contest. I'm not going to tell you when. You'll just have to wait and see. But hopefully you will enjoy the episode today as we really dig into the mulligan theory. And also a very special thank you to Ice Lanceman for his suggestion on how he would handle the mulligan. We do go into it, and I'm going to take my hat off to anyone who wants to participate to learn actually how to do trading card games. I think the barrier to entry is set a little too high in some cases, and that's basically what this show is all about. Removing that barrier to entry, teaching, educating, and of course, making as much fun of me as possible. Marsh did a really good job today of making fun of me. A really, really good job. So hopefully you will enjoy that. I will state for the news, there is not too much news in the online TCG area unless you are a big fan of Faria, which is a strategy card game that actually has cards in. I did an article on it if you want to check MMOBuff.TV, but they've actually added to their shop now the ability to try the game out for free for 10 days. I highly recommend it if you are a fan of TCGs. It's a browser-based TCG, so it's really cool. And it's still in the beta, so there are still tweaks and little twerks that they're doing to try to make everything work out. But to this day, it is still one of the number one favorite card games that I have played. But again, we're all about Hearthstone today on this show as we dig into mulligans and things like that. So, without too much further ado, what I need everybody in the chat to do is to find the nearest chua, stick it on a pike, and roast it in summoning and helping me to summon from the past Dr. Marshmellow and myself as we go and we learn more about mulligans, synergy, and figuring out exactly what a vanilla bear is. So, yeah. On that note, I'm going to be here. Like I said, this is a little bit pre-recorded, but I'm literally going to be in the chat room. If you have questions, comments, or anything else like that, let me know. I will bring everything back to Marsh and myself, and yeah, we'll basically make your dreams come true. So it is now that I sit here, centering myself, and I thrice name Dr. Marshmellow. Dr. Marshmellow. Dr. Marshmellow. Dr. Marshmellow. Also, past self, I summon you. And as if by magic, Marsh and I of the past, but the ultimate Marsh, the immortal Marsh. I'm trying to think of other words that represent godhood, and I just can't think of anything right now. But
my favorite word is the omnipotent Marsh.
I was trying to avoid that because that's so common. But yes, welcome. And I have totally started us off with the mulligan from last week. We might as well just skip right into it. No funniness abounds, no diabetic zombies. We're just going to jump right into the mulligan, because we've talked about all kinds of stuff in previous episodes. This time, however, I want to focus on mulligans and synergy, because we talk about it, but we haven't quite fully defined it, and there's a lot more to it. Hence why it's the synergistic. Synergistic Mulligan.
Very
I came
good.
up the word.
You get a gold star.
I should give myself a gold star. That would be great. But yes, we left everybody off with the knowledge that we were using the Druid Deck from the previous episode that we showed so that you could make a decision as to whether you wanted to mulligan. My brain's not cotton candy today. Today it is gummy bears. You could decide whether you wanted to mulligan or not. So, what we have here is we have the Druid Deck from before, and then we have a Wild Growth, a Starfire, and an Enervate that has popped up. Now, we had a comment from YouTube, from one of our YouTubenites. Ice Lanceman said, you'd certainly want a mulligan. Many Warlocks run aggro decks or Murloc decks. Starfire would be a dead card in that situation. You wouldn't want Wild Growth because you'd need to stave off aggression early game, not ramp. And Enervate could be useful depending upon the deck. Now, I kind of agree with what he has said. I personally would get rid of Starfire and just leave it at that. That's my answer to this. Because to me, and my reasoning for this, is if I get rid of Starfire, I have a better chance at getting my hands on something that could be actually played like a creature because I'm creatureless right now. And none of the things that I have are going to be spells that actually protect me. They're not aggressive spells in any way, shape, or form. They're not even really defensive spells because that's just how that looks. But I would also want to keep Enervate and Wild Growth in case I got something huge and I could prep for a turn 3 kind of a drop. That would be my logic and reasoning. So, Dr. Marshmellows, the omnipotent god that you are with your ultimate banhammer of doom, did I fail?
You get half a gold star. We're going to construct the MMOBuff pseudo sticker chart. Every time you get a gold star, you'll be able to get a gummy bear. And at the end of the week, if you've collected 10 or more gold stars, you get a trip to the zoo!
Oh no! So I'm only at 1.5 now. Darn it.
You're at 1.5 stars. But that's good, because I'm not even halfway through the week yet.
It's Wednesday! Yes, we are!
Okay. Let's see. I was going to talk about. So you want to obviously Starfire is the one to get rid of because
it's too expensive.
Yeah, it's too expensive to start. Anything over about 3 is generally a bit suspect to keep in your hand to start with, unless you know you're going to be able to get to it before it causes you more harm. So Starfire, it gets the boot. So that's an obvious one. The debate does come between Innovate and Wild Growth, whether you should ditch them or keep them. Most of the time you want to... personally, I get rid of Innovate and Starfire here, simply because with Wild Growth, if you play it on turn 2, you give yourself turn 3, you get a chance to use your hero power and play a 2-drop, which is significantly better than your previous turn 3, which is not keeping it. Maybe having a 3-drop, but also maybe having a 2-drop. It's considering the amount of 2-drops and the lack of 3-drops in the deck. There's only 2 3-drops in the entire deck, so which are Harvest Golems. So your chance of actually drawing something you want to play above a Wild Growth on turn 2 is a bit low. So keeping the Wild Growth gives you more options at this point, even if you're. Like, what are you doing? You're not going straight to the answer already. So as you can see here, you've got a whole bunch of decent turn 2s, and you've got some removal in your 2 and 1-drop slots, and not much in your 3-drop slots. So no matter what you draw, chances are you're going to want to be playing that Wild Growth turn 2 anyway. So
right. So you know you have a turn 2
drop.
drop.
Wild Growth at this point.
Right. So you,
yes.
In this particular case,
it's about knowing your deck.
Okay, so it's about knowing your deck. Now, Ice Lanceman makes a really good point. I mean, he recognized when looking at the screen that you were going up against a Warlock. And he kind of said, well, Warlocks seem to be running aggro Murloc decks right now. That seems to be the trend in the game. So, obviously, not just knowing your deck, but having an idea of what decks other people are playing is important. I mean...
Yes, Lock is annoying. It's actually
Lock.
a lot more of it is
Lurgle. Lock.
Aggro Warlocks sort of dropped off to the low end of the play pile now. But most of it that you see is a bit more mid-rangey. Even if we were back about 2 months ago where Aggro Lock was really, really popular, even in that case, I'd still keep the Wild Growth because the amount of damage they can do to you in that one turn, like by the time that you're going to need to draw something to deal with it, is about 9. Starting with 30 health, being able to ramp up to your stuff quicker is worth the 9 health in this scenario, because you're going to be able to play harder stuff for them to deal with, more removal and all that sort of stuff. You need to be able to get to a sustainable position early.
Okay, so by turn 2, they could have 9 damage done to you? Or are we talking turn 3?
Turn 1, Flame Imp. Turn 2, either 2 Flame Imps or a Succubus or something like that. And then their turn 3, by the time you get to deal with anything, they're either going to be able to attack you for 3, 7, or possibly 11. But in that case, you're going to be able to, in the perfect world, you've Wild Growth, you're able to drop a Yeti and start clearing their board. Or you've been able to play that Wild Growth and now you can play Wrath and use your hero power. Or you've got a lot more options to be able to deal with what they put out. It's about not only knowing your deck, but about being able to manage your resources effectively, which is what we discussed in a couple of the episodes beforehand.
All the resources?
Yes, all the resources.
All of them.
All the advantages.
All the advantages. Yes. All the advantages. Okay. What about power spikes? Is that basically what a Warlock is doing? Is a power spike by using the Flame Imp and the Succubus?
Yeah, so decks spike at different points in the game.
Define spike. And I don't mean the vampire from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That show is so much awesome. It deserves its own top drawer show. No, a power spike is a period of the game in which you're almost guaranteed to have more advantages or be able to do more than your opponent can deal with. So the more of these you can achieve, or the faster you can achieve these, is another way to win a game. So Warlock spike really, really early.
Is that basically truly the definition between things like the aggro deck and the combo deck and all those other types of deck, or the control deck? Because control spikes more mid-late game and aggro is more early-mid?
Yeah. So
spiking actually can help determine your deck.
Yes, where you spike, so if you spike really early game, really late game, or in the middle somewhere, really it does determine where your deck sort of stands in that aggro control combo sort of triangle.
Mm-hmm.
So an aggro Warlock deck spikes really early. It wants to throw out as much stuff within those first 3 turns as possible and then start drawing cards and sacrificing health to draw more cards and all that sort of jazz. Whereas a deck like this, its power is really around, the 6 turn drop where you want to be dropping your Rags and your Ancients of Lords and your Sylvanas and all that sort of stuff. So you've got a 5 turn difference between those power spikes. So you really need to be able to ramp up to your power spike very fast. Or at least control the game state with swipe and stuff like that to get to your power spike.
So that's why things like Wild Growth, where you gain the empty mana crystals, which helps you to gain an advantage with your mana resource, and things like Enervate are actually very useful because technically speaking, you could on turn 5, well, technically turn 4 if you throw down the Wild Growth, you could actually pop a 7 mana creature.
Yes. So it's all about getting to your spikes a lot faster and being able to, do more to affect the game state. Because once you drop one of these massive creatures, it doesn't matter what you do for the next turn or maybe the next 2 turns, you've got all your power sort of condensed into this one card that your opponent is forced to deal with.
Now, that obviously leads to, at least in my mind, well, if they're forced to deal with it, what's to say that they don't just go, lol, polymorph?
Yeah, well, that's it. That brings us again back to our mulligans. So it's about knowing what cards to keep and what cards to throw away. Once you know your opponent's deck and you know where your power spikes are and you know your own deck, it's about you start to get a feel for what to throw away, what you need to keep, and what situations against what decks. Mm-hmm. So, for example, most people probably would have seen the Naturalize in this deck, which was a really stupid decision by me to put in, but it's there, let's deal with it. A Naturalize, it's my answer for everything that I can't get an answer to. So if I know that I'm going to be playing against, I don't know, one of my crazy friends like Pseudo, who loves playing stupid ramp decks that will drop a rag on turn 3, I will keep my Naturalize because it's my 1 mana answer to her turn 3 rag.
I also want to point out, folks, that I appreciate the fact that Dr. Marsh has such amazing confidence in my abilities to actually pull rags out on turn 3.
Yeah, I'd be amazed if you had a rag, to be honest.
I don't know. But go ahead.
Anyway, so it's about keeping the answers you need. If you know you're going to need it, your Naturalize, or if you know you're going to need the silence from the Keeper of the Grove, or if you know you're going to need that swipe, what do you know you need to keep? And that needs to factor into your decision what to mulligan. You know you don't need to keep, a rag, an Ancient of Law, Sylvanas, Starfire, Starfall, all this sort of stuff that you know you're not going to be able to get to. But there are cards that you know you need against certain decks, and that needs to factor into what to keep and what to throw away. If I'm up against this Warlock deck and my hand consists of Wrath, Swipe, and let's go with Nat Pagle, that's a really you have to sort of tank on that hand. You have to really think about what to keep and what to throw away in a hand like that, because do you keep the Nat Pagle because it's hard to kill and gets you card advantage, or do you keep the Wrath because that's that little bit of removal you need to get you over the edge, or do you keep the Swipe because you might be able to take some damage and then clear their board? What do you do in that situation? So it's about...
Well, that's a good question. So let's say then that we have actually drawn the Nat Pagle, which is at the end of your turn you have a 50% chance to draw a card. You have Wrath, which is choose one. You can either deal 3 damage to a minion or 1 damage and draw a card. Or you have Swipe, which is dealing 4 damage to an enemy and 1 to all other enemies. Now, this, to me, would be an easy answer. And I think that's because of the fact that you have 2 Wrath and 2 Swipe in this deck. If I had that pop up and I had to make the choice to mulligan, I would actually get rid of Swipe.
It would depend heavily for me on what I was playing against.
So for you, it depends on the type of opponent, whether you're playing against a hunter or whether you're playing against a mage or whether you're playing against a priest, based on what your knowledge is for the type of decks that they could play, would depend for you what you would do.
Yeah. So if I was playing against, let's say, a priest, chances are the only thing I'm going to keep is Nat Pagle. Because Nat Pagle's only going to do 2 things against a priest. It's either going to die straight away to a Shadow Word Pain, or it's going to sit there and keep drawing me cards because the priest has no other way to deal with it until they draw a Shadow Word Pain, or until they drop something I can get.
Okay.
And I get rid of the Wrath and the Swipe because generally they don't have, really horrible early game threats for me to deal with. I'd rather have a creature to start attacking them with, so that they have to make the choice to either Shadow Word Pain my Nat Pagle or Shadow Word Pain my, I don't know, Keeper of the Grove or my Harvest Golem or something like that.
Right. Okay. Ooh, we're making progress. Okay. So moving on then. Now that we have a little bit of knowledge, and for a reminder for folks, this is the deck that we are going to basically be reviewing for our next questions, because we're going to discuss some more mulligans. However, I will point out this deck has changed.
This deck has changed greatly, and please don't build this deck because it will not win games, and I don't want to be responsible for you losing large quantities of games because of my silly deck building.
We could very easily, and it all depends on you if you guys want to hear about it, we could easily do a deck review episode. So don't hesitate to send us your decks and say, review this for us, and we will.
And Marshmellow will definitely build your deck, and he will take it into ladder, and he will bitch and moan at you about how many ranks it lost him.
Marsh.
But he will do it.
Earning gold stars. The omnipotent way. Right, speaking of gold stars, let's see if I can learn a little bit about these stars that we have coming up. Right, so we are currently going up against a paladin in this particular case. We have drawn the Starfire, the Azure Drake, and Wrath, and we get to go first, which is kind of cool. My first question to you, I'll let you decide. Do you want me to give you my answer first and then ask questions? Or do you want me to ask questions and then get... Actually, it's probably best if I give my answer because then people don't think I'm cheating. And believe it or not, I have not cheated. I may have set everything up, but I have not actually looked at the answers properly. How's that for you?
You just quiz me about it for half an hour, but you know.
I did not. Don't lie.
Right,
I'm a good mortal.
Yeah, sure. No mortals are good mortals, let's be honest.
Aw. Okay, so in this particular case, we are, like I said, going up against a paladin. We have Starfire, Azure Drake, and Wrath. Going first means a little bit to me because paladins' decks tend to start having things at like 2 mana for drops or for playability. I very rarely run across like 1 mana cards that I've seen in paladin decks, but I could be very wrong, but that's just my personal thing. But I don't go as high in the ladder as Marsh does. So there you go. So for me, in this particular case, I would keep Wrath and I would mulligan out Starfire and the Azure Drake. Because they're just too expensive.
You're at 2.5 stars now, girlie.
Woo-hoo, I'm almost close to a trip to the zoo.
Trip to the zoo.
Oh, that'd be great. I am keeping track. I may, just for fun, actually make little stars and put them at the bottom of the screen so people can watch me grow stars.
Oh, we should totally do that every episode. Pseudo star chart. We'll be at the top of the screen. We'll just have blank stars, and as you get them, you'll get like quarter stars and half stars. I'll start scoring your presenting abilities.
I am so screwed.
You are.
Well, it's the only way to learn. I'll do it. I will go for those gold stars. But yes, so you're saying that is the actual answer.
Yes. So you keep the Wrath here because you need an answer to something. And as we've discussed before, Starfire and Azure Drake just cost too much and don't do enough to be considered as, lead runners in your hand. You need to get rid of them and try and get something more effective. Yeah, and even if you don't, at least you've got the Wrath to sort of stave off something big for a while.
Okay. So if we look at the answer that you did, ta-da!
Ta-da!
There goes the X's. Excellent. Now my question for you, based on that, is being told that you go first or go second, does that in any way, shape, or form factor into the choices that you make? Besides just simply knowing your deck, knowing the potentials for what you're going up against, having an idea about, the hero, etc. Does it actually matter if you go first or not as to whether you do? Or make some decisions?
It makes a lot of difference. A lot of it does come down to what type of deck you're playing and what power spikes you have and stuff like that.
Power spikes, right.
Yeah. And it depends, that weighs a lot on how good going first is for you or how good going second is for you. General rule of thumb, if you're aggro, you want to be going first. If you're control, you want to be going second. So I think our next Mulligan slide, we can talk about what how the effects of going second is going to implement what you actually pick to throw away and what you don't.
Okay.
But in general, It's about the amount of cards you get versus how fast you want to kill people. So it's about tempo versus card quality.
Right.
Swap over
couple terms we haven't done yet. So
haven't we?
We have not dug into tempo, nor have we dug into quality. We may have mentioned them here and there, but tempo is important because it is in its own right, in my opinion, an advantage. If you control the tempo, you have a severe advantage to how the game plays out, especially if you are playing like a control deck or actually, kind of really makes a difference. If you control tempo, you basically control the game.
Yeah, you control tempo by controlling advantages. So most of the time you're controlling tempo by either putting threats on the board or clearing threats away from the board.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter how many cards you have in your hand or how much life you have to affect tempo. It's more about how cards are coming onto and off of the board. So if you're an aggro deck, you want a large amount of tempo to start with, and it relates again back to our palace fights.
Okay.
And you want a large amount of tempo to start with, so you can start flooding the board with dudes, and start getting sort of that, that swinging motion. Put a dude down, attack. Put a dude down, attack. Put a dude down, attack. That's sort of your tempo. You think of it like dance,
the tempo waltz.
Okay?
Yeah, I was about to say that's like a watch. Yeah. You put a dude down, you attack. It's like a waltz. A 1, 2, 3. Right?
Whereas a mid-game mid-game sort of deck is more like, someone playing the drums in the back of a symphony, where it's wait, dum, wait, dum, wait, dum. Whereas, I'm removing stuff, put a dude down. I'm removing stuff, put a dude down. Whereas your more controller deck is more like the guy who's playing the triangle, where it's wait some more, still waiting, oh look, a rag.
And here I was going to say we need more cowbell, but you used triangle in your example. Darn it. Okay.
I'm sure we can do. Would you like to go back and do cowbell? We can do cowbell. It's like the guy playing the cowbell. Waiting, still waiting, dong, rag.
Need more cowbell? That's just, man. Okay. Right. So in this particular case, we are going second because you get 4 cards when you go second, correct?
Yes.
Is that
so
always?
You get 4 cards, and you get to mull 4 cards, which is amazing in Hearthstone as well.
Yes. As we had mentioned in the previous episode, some card games are an N-1 when you mulligan. In this particular case, because that's the thing. In most card games, if you mulligan, you have to get rid of your entire hand. Period. You can't keep certain cards. Whereas in Hearthstone, you do have the option to keep certain cards. And yes, you get it all back. You don't just get the N-1 back. So, woo, exciting. Anyway.
And the huge difference here is also you get your 4 cards, because each player draws a card on their turn, as opposed to the first.
So you basically start with
not
5 cards.
And the second, So it's different, like in Magic the Gathering, you both draw 7 cards, and you decide whether you're going to mull down to 6 or keep. Alright?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same for both players. The only difference is, player 1 doesn't draw their first card, and player 2 does draw their first card. Whereas in Hearthstone, the huge difference comes in at one player gets to choose whether to keep or mulligan 3 cards, and the other player gets to choose to keep or mulligan 4 cards. And it might not sound like a big difference, but it is really, really big in terms of card quality. Because if you think about the percentages of cards you could draw in a deck that's quite a lot lower, it's only 30 cards, I think. God, having one of those days.
It is 30 cards. Well, see, that's the thing.
Cards.
Wait, on your first turn, if you were player 2, you basically have 1/6 of your deck in your hand.
Yeah,
you have 5 cards in your hand.
It's a lot easier to manipulate which cards you want going second, which
explains why if you're a controller, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So that's all about card quality. You know that your chances of drawing the card you need go up astronomically. It's not just a percentage wise, it's called compounding percentages, and it goes up astronomically by being the second person as opposed to being the first.
So if I were an aggro deck and I was going second, doesn't that work in my favor, or does it not? Because I'm left with too many choices and I'm still left, quote unquote, defending instead of aggressive playing. Or does it really depend on who you're going against?
For the aggro deck, the difference comes in as to who gets to attack first. So while you may have better quality aggressive cards, you've got to remember a lot of the cards that an aggro deck plays within the 1, 2, and 3 drops are all incredibly similar as to their aim, as to what they're trying to do. All they're trying to do is as much damage to you as early as possible. So in that end, card quality doesn't matter as much because all of your cards are focused on the exact same thing.
Killing.
Whereas in a control deck, your cards are focused on very separate things. Some cards are about clearing the board. Some cards are about maintaining board presence. Some cards are about getting card advantage. Some cards are about putting down large creatures to win. Some cards are about just burning to you to the face for 10. It's the aims of the cards that differ greatly depending on deck type.
Right.
Determine whether you need the aggressive sort of I attack first, pew 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 sort of stuff, or the I need this card quality, I need certain cards, I need to have this choice to be able to achieve the goals of my deck.
Okay, that makes sense. But based on what you've said now, and the fact that we're going second, and I'm looking at this, we've got a Rags, we've got the Aldor Peacekeeper, we've got the Defender of Argus, and we've got Equality. I'm just going to let everyone out there know Defender of Argus is awesome.
Defender of Argus is probably one of the most ridiculous cards that they've created in Hearthstone, and I'm surprised it took so long to get nerfed, and I'm still very surprised that even in its current incarnation, it still it needs to be nerfed again, basically.
Right. Now, this is different than the deck we've been using because it's a paladin deck.
Yes.
So it's not the deck that we were looking at before. This is a different deck, which is kind of important to keep in mind. We're not the Druid anymore, folks. We are now the Paladin. And if this is the Paladin deck that you had before, this is one of the combo Paladin decks that you have?
It's not combo, it's more mid-range control.
Oh, sorry, mid-range control. So this is one of the mid-range control decks, and you're going second, which means hallelujah to you, because you're already working in your favor, because you're control, you're going second, which we had just discussed. Now, I'm going to get rid of Ragnaros to start, because that's a late game. That is something that is not going to solve problems for me to start. It's not going to help me, so Rags is gone. The Aldor Peacekeeper has a battle cry that changes an enemy minion's attack to 1. That can be awesome. Now, I'm going up against a mage. Mages, to me, tend to have, or at least the decks that I've seen, tend to be very board-cleary decks. And then they tend to focus a bit more on spells than they do on creatures when going up against people. Is that still the case in the latter game? Or in the meta, have you noticed? More or less?
You don't see as many. You see a lot more creature-based mage decks now, but that being said, you don't see many mage decks anymore because they've sort of fallen into obscurity somewhat. Okay. But you'll see more Yetis and stuff like that in mage decks now than you did previously.
Neutral cards more so than actually relying upon the cards of your particular class.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we have the Aldor Peacekeeper. Because of the fact that the Aldor Peacekeeper is there and I'm going up against a mage, I'd actually mulligan that out as well. But what I would do is I actually would keep the Defender of Argus, mainly because I really, really like it, and Equality. And I just want to make certain I can keep my hands on the Defender of Argus. Do I get half a star? Do I get no stars?
So you're keeping the Defender of Argus and the Equality, yes?
Yes, I am.
You get no stars. I'm sorry. There is no limit.
I fail. Dang. But that's okay. That's why we're doing these shows. Go ahead. Teach me, oh Dr. Marsh. I bow to you as I summon you from the abyss.
So I can't even remember the answer I put down for this puzzle.
I guess we'll look.
I can talk you through my thinking for this deck, because this deck doesn't exist anymore for me, so I can't remember what I was thinking at the time. So Ragnaros is an obvious no, get out of here. I don't think we really need to discuss that too much more. It costs too much, and it doesn't do anything in this early stage of the game, so he has to go back to the deck.
Besides, with you playing second, you already get 1/5 of your hand in your... 1/5 of your deck in your hand on your first turn, which still means that if you really want to get the Ragnaros, you're closer to getting it than if you were going first.
Now next. Next is the Outdoor Peacekeeper. I'd be keeping this card. Simply because it deals... It can deal with, you know, any of your early game drops, like if they decide to play a Mana Worm and then just drop their hand, making the Mana Worm like a 5/3, deals with that. It deals with the 3/2 Apprentice very well. It deals with lots of things, and even then, it's still a 3/3 for 3, which is okay, especially for a mid-range control where what you want to do is sort of...
Okay, so this is sort of like the quote-unquote the Grizzly Bear, except it does something a bit more, thus making it better than just simply a Grizzly Bear.
That's it.
Now, for those who don't understand what I'm referring to, I use quotes and say Grizzly Bear because in Magic the Gathering, it's a 2/2/2. 2 mana, 2 damage, 2 defense, basically, is what it comes down to. And it's known as a common card, cost-wise, it doesn't do anything special. It's just a creature. It's a common, really.
Yeah,
There's
the Vanilla Bear.
Vanilla Bear, that's what it's called, the Vanilla Bear, right. Do I get a gold star for knowing that? No. I'm trying so hard to get gold stars. I want to go to the zoo.
I'm a horrible teacher, and I believe in internal motivation as opposed to external. Those intrinsic motivators, got to keep them going.
Okay, so based on the fact that this is sort of like the Vanilla Peacekeeper, with an added bonus of like frosting because it does this lovely battle cry, you would keep the Outdoor Peacekeeper.
Yes, I'd keep the Outdoor Peacekeeper here. And the Defender of Argus, while being amazing, you don't really have anything to chuck him on at this point. And if you are forced to play him turn 4, he becomes an incredibly subpar creature.
So he's more a response than anything else.
Yes.
Because of his battle
cry.
He's
much more about responding to threats or protecting your own threats.
Okay.
So he's not really much use to us at this point.
All right.
And the equality is all about synergy in this deck. You need, you know, like a Consecrate or a Wild Pyromancer or something like that to make the equality useful.
Okay.
So the equality gets chucked back in because you don't have those sort of combo cards to really make equality extremely useful, and you don't sort of... It's more of a late-ish game card where you know you're sort of in the mire a little, and you need to be able to sacrifice your board for their board.
Okay, so it's a full, proper, helpful board clear kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at the answer that you had given the very first time around.
God, I hope that I put down the right answer. Yes!
Marsh now gets a gold star.
I'm excited myself because, you know, I have consistent reasoning, and that's what really matters.
Interesting.
Doesn't matter how poor your reasoning is, but it needs to be consistent.
There you go. Okay, now you have made mention of the synergy, and you have made mention of synergy a lot. Now, we had mentioned that we were going to talk more about synergy, and what I'd like to do is have a real solid definition of synergy. Yeah, it's a matter of how your cards work together. That could be a very simple answer, but to me, that's blasé. I think synergy has multiple meanings. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, synergy can mean a lot based on a lot, actually.
Synergy. Many answers. Many definitions.
All the answers.
All the definitions.
Yeah, synergy is a lot about deck construction and how cards interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Your synergy is all about, once again, achieving how are you going to achieve your goal for the
Win
deck,
victory?
which is to win. How is your deck going to achieve this, and what cards can you put together to achieve your victory condition? It's all about those cards working in tandem. Your cards don't need to work in tandem with each other. They also need to work in tandem with the entire deck. They need to work in tandem with the mana curve. So your synergy can be, that I played my Wild Pyromancer with equality to wipe the board. That's one form of synergy. Your other form of synergy is I have this, basically horrible, what would normally be considered horrible card in my deck, but because it does something that I need it to do, it becomes really good in this specific deck. That's another form of synergy. And your last form of synergy is, these cards may be horrible, but it fills a void in my mana curve. It fills a void in somewhere like, I need 3 drops. Therefore, this example isn't that great because Harvest Golem is already amazing, but I need 3 drops. Therefore, I put Harvest Golem in because it's, the best 3 drop I can feasibly put into this deck that fulfills the fact that I need 3 drops and I need creatures and all this sort of stuff. So that has synergy with the deck overall.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just put something, well, you can just put something in a deck just for the sake of it, but that's going to end up being a poor decision. You have to think about how each single card interacts with the deck as a whole.
Right. Okay, so in this particular case, one of the things you were saying is that you put Naturalize into this deck, which you really wouldn't do, but you needed something to handle removal.
Yes.
So that is synergy for the win condition, or is this not even synergy at all? It's just I have a problem, I have a void, and there you go.
This was, I have a void of, I can't deal with Ysera. How the hell am I going to deal with Ysera? Oh, look, Naturalize does that. And, of course, this was before the popularization of Tinkmaster Overspark, so...
Let's take a moment. Marsh, I know that we're talking about Hearthstone, and I know that we're looking into, all the things involving synergy and tempo and stuff like that, but I'm feeling the need to give away a Wildstar beta key.
The need for keys. I'm not sure, Pseudo. I'm not sure the mortals deserve one.
Oh, but please, omnipotent. Omnipotent Dr. Marshmellow. We're going to give away a beta Wildstar key. We're giving away a Wildstar beta key for those of you who are here, and in fact, the best way to do it is to have Marsh give you a word that you're going to use. Type it into the channel. So pick a word.
A word. My favorite word is squiggle.
Squiggle. Squiggle.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Squiggle. Squiggle. Type that into the chat and you will have a chance at a Wildstar beta key. Make certain you're following the channel. And now we bring you back to what we were discussing previously. Ta-ching. There we go. Tinkmaster Overspark. Now, Tinkmaster Overspark is a rather interesting card to me. It is a 3 mana cost, 2/2, and its battle cry will turn a minion into a 5/5 Devilosaur or a 1/1 squirrel, randomly.
This card is a billion different types of amazing.
The thing that sticks out to me, or I should say that runs through my brain, is when I look at a card like this, my very first instinct is, God, 5/5s are going to be a pain. Why would I want to risk it?
Yeah, but alright, so changing what do you think is better for you on your board? You have, let's say, a fairly equal board with your opponent. Your opponent has a Ysera, you have a Rakdos, and you also both have about 4 Yeti quality sort of creatures on the board each.
Mm-hmm.
You each have 5 creatures. You both have 0 cards in your hand, and the only difference is your Ragnaros versus their Ysera.
Okay.
You draw Tinkmaster Overspark on your turn. What is better for you? Is it to transform one of your Yeti quality creatures maybe into a 1/1 or maybe into a 5/5? Is it to transform one of their Yeti quality creatures into maybe a 1/1 or maybe a 5/5? Or is it to transform their big ass 9/12 dragon into a 5/5 or a 1/1?
That is the best one. Now, that's the thing.
Gold stars all around for all the viewers.
How many gold stars do I get?
1.
Oh, okay, so I'm up to 3.5 gold stars, and the viewers get 1 gold
Oh.
star. Working on it, viewers.
They're
I'll get you into that zoo
almost.
soon. They are almost beating me. The thing that gets to me is when I read battle cries and things like this, and I think this is something that if you're a casual player versus someone who's constantly hardcore, or someone who's going for the meta game, you can forget that cards can be applied to the opposing side. You could, if you were a priest, heal an opponent. That is an option for you. And I think that is where I screw up when I look at a card like this. Because I'm all like, this is great and all. However, oh yeah, I can use it on other minions. It's not just my minions. And I do think they do a relatively okay job of explaining on the cards which minions you can actually manipulate for certain things. But I think the problem is I ran into a card that was not clear enough. And obviously it was during closed beta, so I didn't really... I'm pretty certain they've probably changed it by now, because I'm certain I'm not the only one who sat there and went, but it says this and it's not letting me, you evil people. But there you go. So yes, it's all about being able to manipulate the other people. Go ahead.
Yes, just like life.
Just like life. But you're a god and a doctor, Marsh. That's part of your job as a deity, is to manipulate everybody.
Indeed it is.
But yes.
Sorry, what were we talking about?
We were talking about Tinkmaster Overspark as filling a need in the 3.
Yeah, so Tinkmaster Overspark fills the same need as Naturalize does, but he does it better, much better. Because you think of Naturalize. Naturalize really achieves the same thing. It destroys, for 1 mana, it destroys an opponent's creature, but they get to draw 2 cards. Okay? Whereas
so you're giving them
Overspark...
deck advantage.
Yeah. You're giving them a huge advantage at the cost of removing what they like, a huge threat on the board, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Tinkmaster Overspark really achieves the same thing. It makes something that is unmanageable manageable, but for an extra 2 mana, it also gives you a 2/2 dude, and it has the chance of, it has a whole bunch of other interactions. Say, a shaman has hexed one of your creatures. You can't. If you naturalize your 1 creature, you're just going to destroy your creature and give your opponent 2 cards. But if you Tinkmaster Overspark your hex froggy, it could become a 5/5, and it could become a 1/1. But either way, it's still better than a 0/1.
Yeah.
If you're winning by miles and you just need that extra little bit over the edge to kill your opponent, you can always Tinkmaster your own dudes. There's a lot of interaction. He gets rid of Death Rattles. So if someone plays a Sylvanas, you Tinkmaster it, bye-bye Death Rattle. Someone plays a Tyrian Vordring, you Tinkmaster it, bye-bye Death Rattle. There's so many things that you can do with Tinkmaster Overspark. He's just so much better than a Naturalize.
Out of curiosity, because this is something that you and I have discussed in a previous episode before, when it comes to dealing with a card, when it's something this good, shouldn't it be in every single deck, making it part of meta?
Well, I think it is right now. I think lots of people are running Tinkmaster Overspark in high-end decks.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing a lot of Tinkmaster Oversparks, just because he's just that useful. He's so versatile as a card. He's not a 3-drop by any stretch of the imagination. He is a removal spell in your hand that you save until something comes up that you can't deal with.
So this is not something you would drop turn 3. This is like a 6, 7, or 8 turn drop.
The only time you drop this turn 3 is when silly Pseudonym drops a turn 3 Ragnaros, and you go Overspark.
Oh, sad face. Why you destroy things? Okay, so going back to the deck that you have, or that we were talking about, you have quite a few different things that kind of work together. So, for example, you have the synergy between the Defender of Argos with the Golems and Sylvanas.
Yeah, so Defender of Argus, he has synergy with any creature, really, because he buffs them and he gives them Taunt, which is great. Don't get me wrong. But what's better than buffing a single creature and giving it Taunt? Buffing creatures with Death Rattle and giving them Taunt. If you buff a Harvest Golem, it becomes a 3/4, and when it dies, it gives you another 2/1 for 3 mana. That's great. And Sylvanas with Taunt is always amazing. It's when they finally manage to throw enough creatures into it to kill it, you're just going to steal whatever remains on their board. And not only that, Defender of Argus, it fills the second need, which is, helping you survive to be able to drop out the really big threats like Ragnaros and Ancient of Law and all that sort of stuff, because it makes things have Taunt. So all those aggro decks need to spend cards to get rid of your Heartless Golem or your Keeper of the Grove or whatever, your Nat Pale that you've made a 1/5, which may not sound like much, but it's still going to soak up anywhere between 5 and 9 damage.
Right. Okay, so what I'm thinking here is this would actually be kind of useful. Well, this is, I guess, why Nat Pagal is useful. Not necessarily the Defender of Argos, but Nat Pagal has a completely different type of synergy in this deck.
Yeah,
because he... Yeah, go ahead.
No, go on.
Okay, I was going to say... First. Okay. Mortals first.
Beauty before brains.
I don't know whether to be offended or not. I think I'll be offended. I want brains, damn it. But anyway, I don't want cotton candy brains, and I'm not a zombie. But anyway, Nat Pagal. Nat Pagal gives a deck synergy because it's all about helping you to drill into your deck, which helps you to maintain deck advantage, board advantage, that kind of a thing. And the more cards you end up with in your hands, obviously, the better advantages you have. But at the same time, it doesn't do any damage, so you're not really attacking anything. But because of the fact that it's a 0/4, and I move my mouse so people can actually see that, a Pagal is a 0/4 creature, minion. And because of that, it actually forces people, if they want to prevent you from drilling into your deck and getting the deck advantage, which could give you board advantage, they're going to have to kill it. There are very few things at, we'd say a turn 2 in this case, because let's say I drop it on a turn 2 because it's a 2 mana creature. There are very few things at a turn 2 that are going to be able to stop that. And it's going to be very useful to me because there's a chance I'm going to have cards.
Yeah, that's it. Like, at 2 mana for 0/4, it's pretty brilliant. It takes so many cards to get rid of Nat Pagal. It's almost always going to get you either a good 2-for-1, or it's going to make it so that your opponent has to invest more than 2 mana to deal with it. And at that point, if the turn you play it, he draws you a card, he's already replaced himself. He's amazing to start with, but he's sort of got that synergy with making it so that you stall out long enough to get to your win conditions.
Right.
He sort of puts that threat down. Nat Pagal is so threatening because of the advantages he can give that he becomes a must-kill sort of thing. You have to kill Nat Pagal, otherwise your opponent just starts going out of control with card draw and doing all this crazy stuff. So, yeah, it slows down your opponent enough to be able to get to all the other synergistic things.
Okay, so now we've covered synergy We've looked a bit at mulligans. We've looked at understanding how cards work together. We've looked at advantages. We've looked at different types of cards. We've looked at all kinds of things. We will go into crafting at some point. We're not there yet. What I'd like to do is present a challenge to you folks out there. But what I want Marsh to do is I want Marsh to pick a class in Hearthstone. Pick one.
Panda. No.
That's not a class, that's a race. That's not even in Hearthstone.
So, we'll go with... I need to think of something that I have all the cards for, don't I?
That's probably a good way to go about
Mage.
it, yes. Mage. Okay. Mage it is. We are going to leave you guys with this week's challenge. This week's Top Draw challenge is to build a mage deck. You can do so at Hearthhead. And in fact, I will put a link up in chat. Put a link in chat now. Ting, ting. To the deck that I am currently showing you. Go into Hearthhead, build what you think would be a good mage deck. Tell us in comments below or in the various locations where you can get in touch with us what type of deck it is. Is it aggro? Is it combo? Is it control? Is it some kind of crazy, oh my gosh? And see if you can build the advantages so that we can test it. And we're going to put Marsh to work with your deck. And we'll see where we'll basically listen to Marsh talk about whether or not that deck was uber awesome, or whether that deck could get you so far in ladder, or whether that deck is basically going to screw you over and why. And that'll help us, because the more we understand about that, the closer we are to really being able to just go, yes, we can construct awesome decks. So go to Hearthhead, create a deck, take a copy of the deck. Remember, it needs to be mage. This week we're working on mage. But if you have any other decks you want us to look at, don't hesitate to let us know, because we are all for that. But yes, that is the challenge we are leaving you.
If you struggle for deck ideas, best place to get deck ideas is definitely in Arena. You know, play a couple of mage arenas and look at what works and what doesn't.
There you go. Or did you run across a particular mage deck that drove you up the wall and you want to know how to beat it? Because we're not just going to ask Marsh, tell us what's so successful about this deck. We're going to ask what could potentially beat this. Because as we were discussing, there is sort of a rock, paper, scissors kind of methodology based on deck types. You still have to play the deck well, but there are synergies and the triangle. But yes, on that note, Dr. Marsh, it has been wonderful. I love summoning you every week.
Those poor kittens in that sacrifice chamber.
It's not kittens, I promise.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's chewers.
Much better. Love the taste of chewer.
Yes. But yes, on that note, I'm going to throw it back to my future self. And have fun with that. I'm really curious.
Goodbye, mortals.
I'm curious to see what they're going to bring. And we end this show with Pseudo having 3.5 stars and the audience having 1 star. Congratulations, everyone. And I'll...
Don't have to keep a tally.
Oh, I will be keeping a tally. But yes, bye-bye, everyone. And I am back officially. Thank you so much. Also, Marsh, we've summoned you. We did actually have people in the chat sacrificing chuas, which was brilliant. So we summoned you properly. Don't think that we let you down, Dr. Marsh. for those of you who have been actively participating in everything that's going on, thank you so much. You guys have made tonight's show incredibly exciting. And it's great to see that some of you had the same thoughts that I had. And it was also nice hearing why you guys made the choices that you have made. I will give you a little bit of warning. Every top draw that we do from now on, the very start of the show, we will have a deck that we will be putting up pre-show for you to look at. We will then bring up a mulligan, and you will have to help us figure out whether you want to mulligan it or not, and we'll try and figure out reasons. The best way to actually get skillful at a card game is to play it, point blank. So we will be actively playing the game. If you have an idea for a mage deck, please go to Hearthhead.com, build the deck up, send me the link. You can do so through MMOBuff.TV. In the upper right, click contact. Just select top draw and it'll come to me, and I'll be able to bring those decks to Marsh. And if you have any other deck that has been twinkling your eyes or tickling your fancy, feel free to send those in as well. We will be going through the decks that people have picked. We will put them up on screen and we'll discuss them, and we'll, like I said, I want to see if Marsh can help people get, like, for example, and I wish I could remember your name. We had somebody who actually got so far in ladder, but kind of seems to be stuck. And I'd like to try and help you get past where you're stuck. So let us know what decks you have. Let us know where you're at. And yeah, let us help you. Help us to help you. Help us to help you. Now, I know quite a few of you are actually waiting to see who the winner is. And I guess that means that I kind of should announce the winner. And let me go ahead and put that up onto screen. Slightly uncomfortable in my chair today. Only slightly. Right. And the winner is... if I can get this thing to work. My system is being a little slow. Why? Why are you being slow? Come on. There we go. And we grab the screen region, and I kind of freeze for a second. Ha! There we go. A searcher, as I cover my face. Hey, a searcher. Look. You got yourself a WildStar beta key. So congratulations for you there. I will be in touch with you after the show through Twitch to give you a beta key for you to play. Right. Now, because of the fact that I am Lopzilla, because of the fact that I have really enjoyed tonight's show, I'm not going to stop there. So, a searcher, congratulations, you have just gotten yourself a key, but that's not the only key I'm going to give away. I feel the need to give away a key, as you have heard, and so I'm going to pick one more person to get a key too. However, what I would like for people to do, as I update the competition, is what I would like is for people to type a word for me, and the word that you are going to type, Marsh. And what I'm going to do now is end it here, go into a post show where people who are watching this on YouTube, unfortunately, you will miss what happens in the post show, but I will be announcing the very next winner probably after the end. So this is Pseudo saying Toodle Pip, and I will see you right after this. Greetings, everyone, or mortals, if you are Marshmellow. Pseudo here. Thanks for watching episode 9 of Top Draw with Marshmellow and myself. If you enjoyed watching and learning about synergistic mulligans, please click like and share it with others. If you have any questions or comments that you want us to tackle, please share it below. Not only do we read them all, but I love engaging in discourse with our viewers. Remember to subscribe. Toodle pip.